Welcome to week 8 of Big Balls Fantasy Football, the only show by real fantasy football fans for real fantasy football fans. I'm your host, 20-year fantasy veteran and fan of, unfortunately, the now decimated Chicago Bears, Greg Reifsteck.
And I am your co-host, Jenilee Borek, also a 10-year fantasy veteran and a Chicago Bear fan. We're 4-3, our season's not going so well, and together we are the beauty
And the beast
of fantasy football experts.
So out there, we know there are very few of you fantasy managers that can say you have a perfect record. And that's because bye weeks have been tough, and there have been tons of injuries, and a lot of what we're about to talk about.
That's right, and the one thing that even experts like us can't always predict is who are going to be the busts of the season. There are quite a few of them out there this year. So, who is your bust of the season?
My bust this season is Doug Martin. I'm pissed at you, dude. I drafted you third in one of my drafts. Third pick, thinking this guy's going to be spectacular. And you know what happens? The muscle hamster ends up having a squeaky wheel, for crying out loud. I mean, last season, 1,454 yards, 11 touchdowns. You're thinking, he's going to be a lock this year. He's going to get me a ton of points. Oh, no. You're busted, dude. You're totally busted, Mr. Martin, because 127 attempts and 456 rushing yards, one touchdown. It's going into week 8. And now, as a supreme bonus, he kind of almost put me out of my injury. He gets injured and gets a torn labrum in his shoulder. So, Cash will tell you about who his replacement is later in the show. But, I mean, he just didn't do it for me this year. I didn't just trade him. I put him out to pasture. I had to do it.
Well, I have a bust as well, and he is on one of my fantasy teams. My bust for this season is wide receiver DWAYNE BOWE. I picked him 1 week in my Real Men to start him, and he actually had a decent week that week. But otherwise, on the season, he's not doing so good. He has 295 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, I know I thought, hey, Kansas City paid him a lot of money, new coach and everything.
And Kansas City has been doing well. They're undefeated.
Yep. And Andy Reid likes to throw the ball. Bo's going to get a ton of catches. And most of the throws, are short yardage throws. Mm-hmm. And that's why Jamal Charles actually at the running back position has more receiving yards than DWAYNE BOWE has. So that's sad when a running back has more receiving yards than your wide receiver.
Yes. So, Mr. Bowe, you're busted. Anyway, let's talk about the Bears. Speaking of disappointments, this week at Tin Horn, everybody was drinking a lot of beer and everybody was pissed off because our team just got decimated, not only by the refs, thank you NFL, but also injuries on both sides of the ball. You want to tell us about that, Jenilee?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, our defense has been injured for a few weeks. We've lost 2 people on the defensive line, Henry Melton being the big one there, and Charles Tillman is still playing through an injury. Mm-hmm. We lost Lance Briggs to a shoulder, so that's the big one. Mm-hmm. The captain of our defense is now gone for 4 to 6 weeks.
Ouch. Is
what I've been hearing. And of course, our quarterback Cutler went down, had to put the backup in, McCown. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't pretty. And we almost won still. So I think that's the disappointing part, is that we still played well enough on offense.
Yeah.
Our defense couldn't stop anything.
No.
At all.
No.
And then we lost.
They're awful at this point, our defense, and this injury only makes it worse. Our line is good. Our offensive line is great. Those 2 rookies on the blind side have been doing fantastic for Cutler, which is why it's kind of shocking that somebody came in and tore his groin. Ow. As a guy, I can't even think of that.
Yeah, he got hurt again. And Forte's running well. I mean, the line is opening up holes for him. So it's disappointing. And I don't know what's going to happen with our season now. I mean, I'm sitting here honestly predicting an 8-8 season at this point.
Wow.
With all the injuries going on. I don't know if McCown can carry us. If we're lucky, he can. If we're lucky, Forte will. But I'm just not convinced that we are going to do so well.
I like McCown's chances, and especially against the Packers. Well, we have a bye week, so he's going to get to, get his reps in practice, get the playbook, in his head. Only problem is, as long as he doesn't get Caleb Haney's disease. And we know what Caleb Haney's disease is. Goes crazy in a key game, brings us back, almost has us win, looks like a stud, and then when we put him as a starter, plays like garbage. But there's a really good stat that we have for Josh McCown. In the last 10 meetings that the Bears have had with the Packers, Jenilee, we've gone 1 for 9. Thanks, Lovey Smith.
Yeah, we're bad against the Packers.
Thanks,
really
Lovey
bad.
Smith. But even though it was a loss, in one of the games we played against them, Josh McCown got the highest points against the Packers, 21 points. I'll take 21 points against the Packers when we play them on Monday Night Football because, honestly, the Packers haven't been looking that hot on offense either. They just kind of found themselves last week. So
yeah, and they're dealing with a lot of injuries too on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
So, we'll see if they have any of their starters back that are out right now. But, it's definitely going to be a tough game.
Definitely. All right, well, let's get on to some better news. Let's get to Jenilee's Real Men of the Week. You ready?
Absolutely. Let's get to it.
Let's do it.
Need a real man. Have you seen him?
Welcome to my Real Man segment. I have 3 more picks for everyone this week, and let's just get right into it. My first pick is running back Darren Sproles of the Saints. I love him. I have him on one of my leagues, and I always put him in my flex position. I missed him a lot, and I lost in that league, actually, because I didn't have him. So this week, he is coming off of the bye week, so he should be very rested, and the Saints are coming off of their first loss. So I think that should get them a little bit more motivated to put some points up on the board. Now, I love Sproles because he is an all-purpose back. He's on the field all the time. Now, he only has 118 rushing yards and 1 touchdown, but he has 32 receptions for 366 yards and a touchdown. That's more receptions than some wide receivers have. So he is out there getting you points. That's great for PPR. Also, they are playing Buffalo this week. Buffalo is allowing 123.6 rushing yards per game, and they only rank 21st against the pass. So Buffalo's defense is not getting it done. I think Drew Brees and company is going to have a field day against Buffalo, and also Sproles gets to play at home. The Saints always play much better at home, so get him in your lineup. Now, my second real man is tight end Rob Gronkowski. That's right, Gronk is back. Gronk had a great first week back. He had 8 receptions for 114 yards. Yeah, that's right. That is his first week back. So if you stored him away, you got some fantasy points for him. Now, the Patriots are playing Miami, and Miami gives up an average of 16 fantasy points to tight ends. I think Gronk is going to get at least 16 points. I'm guessing he might get more around 20. Brady is very, very happy to have him back. Gronk also came out of the game feeling very good, and he had 17 targets and only played 51 of 79 snaps. So because he feels good, they're going to have him on the field more this week, and I think he's going to be a target monster again for Brady. And this is a division game that the Patriots need to win. They just lost against the Jets. That was very unexpected, I think, for everybody. So they need to win against Miami. They're playing at home. Get Gronk in your lineup. He is going to ball out for you guys. And my third real man for everyone is wide receiver Pierre Garçon. Now, I like Garçon's matchup this week because even though Denver's defense played a tad better against the pass, they are still dead last in the league against the pass. Another great thing for the Redskins is they have their running game going. RG3 is back. He is trusting that knee a lot more. He looks so much more confident when he's taking off for the run. So because they have a running game going, that's going to open up their passing game a lot. Now, he's averaging 12 fantasy points per game against bad defenses. That's not amazing, but he's still getting in double digits, and I think if he can get in the end zone, he's going to be getting you guys more than 12 points. And let's face it, the Redskins are going to have to put up points in this game to have any chance of winning. The Broncos are lighting up that scoreboard. They're playing in Denver, and even though Denver had their first loss, they still put up 33 points. So RG3 is going to have to make some magic happen, and Pierre is going to be the guy I think that he's going to be going to most of the day. So those are my three real men picks, and Greg has his beast mode picks for you guys as always this week.
Welcome back to Big Balls Fantasy Football. It's Greg the Beast with my three beast mode picks I give you every week. This week I have three picks so tough, they're tougher than a damn T-bone steak at Sizzler. And you better use them to slice through your competition this week. So, you probably noticed, switched up my jersey a little bit here, but don't worry, I got a lot of crap for wearing Kaepernick online. I still got the Bears underneath, and as we always superstitiously say in Chicago, whichever one is closer to your skin, that's who you're really rooting for. But in fantasy, I'm rooting for Kaepernick again. At the beginning of this season, I was rooting for him, going crazy for him. He had a few off weeks, but I'm backing him again because this week he is the quarterback playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, which means you have to play him. He has also gotten his legs back. This season, his total, 1,420 yards, 8 touchdowns. That's why it's a 2 balls pick, because it's not really risky. Week 6, 252 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Week 7, he only got 200 yards passing, but he went 11 for 68 rushing. That was against the Titans, and that's why you need to go with him because, yes, sir, Harbaugh is letting him run again. And all the wide receivers and all the running backs are so happy because they're actually able to shake it up a little bit and actually able to fool their defenses. So, hey, Harbaugh, you finally got it in your head. Use that damn read option and use your damn quarterback for what he needs to be doing, and that's how he's going to benefit you in fantasy this week. My second beast for you this week is JARRETT, a 4 balls pick on the Packers. Reason I have to go with him is he got hot last week. Now, it's only his second week off the practice squad because Cobb is injured. He went 8 for 108 receiving versus the Browns last week in week 7. He got one 20-yard pass, helps you in your PPR. I mean, against the Ravens, he only got 1 catch, but it was for 43 yards. This kid is hot. He's doing what he needs to do in Cobb's place. That's what you have to do on these teams. When the big receivers go down, you gotta pray that their replacements do well, and this kid is hot. This week, the Packers play the lowly Vikings. Now, we saw what the Vikings did on Monday Night Football. They let the Giants actually get their first win. So, hey, the Packers are going to be ready to tee off on their defense. BOYKIN is Aaron Rodgers' big, brand new, shiny target. There's no way you can't go with him this week. My third beast for you this week is HELU Jr. of the Redskins. Now, Jenilee and I, of course, at Tin Horn this week had to watch him decimate our new Swiss Cheese Bears defense for 3 touchdowns. Not 1, not 2, but 3. For crying out loud. His yardage, he only got 41 yards on 11 carries, so he was in the workhorse mode in short yardage situations. I've been having to put up with this guy all season, wondering when they were going to use him, and of course they used him against the Bears. Because Alfred Morris, they haven't been putting him in at the goal line. They've been letting him run in long-distance situations, or he just hasn't done well at all. I was this close to picking him as my bust this week. Week 6 versus Dallas, he had a very good week. He went 6 for 42 rushing, 4 for 35 receiving. He's a very versatile back. They like throwing to him out of the backfield. They get him running. It's like arena football. It's great for PPR. You got to pick him up, especially because of his opponent this week, the Broncos. Yes, I know the Broncos were supposed to have a tough defense this season. Well, the defense hasn't been doing great at all. It's their offense that have been keeping them in games. Unfortunately, last week, they lost because of their defense because they just let the Colts put up a ton of points on them. This week, I predict the Redskins are going to put up a lot of points on them, just like they put up on our Bears' bad secondary. So, those are my 3 picks this week. Next, we are going to have Cash in on Skype, have our first Skype call in a long time. He's going to be calling us from Texas, and he's going to have 3 gambles on 3 picks that you probably didn't think of putting in your lineup, but are going to get you a lot of points this week. Stay tuned.
So welcome back to Big Balls Fantasy Football. We have Cash with us here tonight, back on Skype to give everyone his gambles of the week. I know you haven't gotten his gambles in a few weeks, so I know he has some good ones. He is calling all the way in from Texas. So what's going on, Cash? Hey, Cash.
Guys, great to see you, and thank you for having me back on Big Balls Fantasy Football. And it's going to week 8, and morning of Bears loss, but I'm hanging in there.
Yeah, we talked about the Bears earlier. It hasn't been good this week. We have a lot of problems. We'll get to that in a moment. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Dallas, how the Cowboys been there and how the Cowboy fans been there since you're right in their backyard?
Sure. There's lately been a little bit of a buzz, negative and positive after the big Denver game a couple weeks ago, but they surprisingly have done well. I mean, most national publications have been between 18 and 20. And there are those today who would rank them in the top 10 this week after the impressive victory last week against the high-flying Eagles. And let me tell you the way they're doing it. They have an opportunistic defense. It's not as bad as their numbers. They have a +4 turnover ratio. Tony Romo, QBR is about 101. He's got 5 picks and 265 attempts. And let's not forget the contributions of the beast, Des Bryant, who's had 42 catches and 6 touchdowns, as well as a new up-and-comer rookie, Terrence Williams, out of Baylor, who's had 24 catches out of 28 targets, leading to 3 touchdowns, and offsetting the loss a little bit of the less than healthy Miles Austin. And the offense is third in the league at scoring at about 28.6, only the Broncos and the Bears. Yes, the Bears.
Cash knows a whole lot about Dallas for being a Bear fan, but I understand they're in your backyard. So why don't you give us your gambles this week and get our fans some good picks?
That sounds great. Yes, absolutely. This is really cash time, and there's with all the injuries that have been hitting the NFL, some of the studs lately, there's definitely times you want to focus on the waiver wire and pick up some good players out there. Number 1 on the radar, Mike James of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's had he had about 14 touches last week after Doug Martin went down, and he's a former Hurricane who runs and catches the ball pretty well, as he did in last week's game. And he'll have rookie Mike Glenn, the quarterback, who has been relatively smooth for a rookie, and he's running the offense pretty well and finding Vincent Jackson and Mike Williams. So trying to get a more of a balanced offense in Tampa Bay. They're still looking for their first win, but I think he'd be somebody that if you're looking for a running back, he might be the one. Borek, what do you think?
Don't talk to me about Doug Martin. I already named him my bust of the year. Sorry, Jenilee. I know you have a slight connection.
Well, I know when Martin went down, I was thinking, who in the world is their backup? I didn't even know. So, I like the pick. I like the gamble, and they got to get somebody in there. So I think it's great. He's definitely going to be on every single waiver wire.
There's a rule in fantasy. If he's a starting running back, you start him over a backup. You start him over like Ben Tate, except Ben Tate this week will be starting. Anyway, maybe, possibly. Give us your second one, Cash.
Well, the second one is definitely an up-and-comer, and he made life pretty difficult for my Chicago Bears, our Chicago Bears. Jordan Reed of the Redskins, the tight end. And, he's had a pretty good start to the season. He's making Fred Davis expendable. But, he had basically, so far in the season, he's had about 26 catches, but doesn't sound like a lot. But that's only with 30 targets. So this guy's pretty sure-handed. It pretty much catches everything thrown its way. Projections are for the whole season. I think he'll catch somewhere between 65 to 70 balls and with about 6 TDs. Another thing to keep in mind about Jordan Reed is, he had 9 catches for 134 yards and a TD last week, of course. Again, that was because of a depleted Chicago defense, but still pretty impressive. And his, numbers I believe will be higher because, as you recall, RG3 had a slower start due to his health, so it's a little bit shaky the first 2-3 games. And now that RG3 got his confidence back, the whole Washington offense seems re-energized. Jordan Reed is 6'2", 243 pounds, and Lance Briggs of the Chicago Bears compared him to Jeremiah Finley. Jenilee, what do you think of Jordan?
Well, I like the pick. I watched him, obviously watching in our Bears game, and I kept thinking, who is this guy? It's not Fred Davis. Who the heck is this guy who's catching everything? And we weren't able to stop him. And then, like you mentioned, RG3 is looking like he's getting more confident in his knee and a lot more back to form. So, he's a good one.
He didn't have a preseason, so now he's finding his targets finally and figuring out who he can trust. So I like that pick too.
Who's your third one?
Well, the third one is a big reach, and yes, it's a major gamble. But if you are desperate for some running back help, you may want to bank on Peyton. No, not Peyton Manning, but Peyton Hillis of the Giants, who just was actually teaching in high school just last week, volunteering, I believe, and got a call to rush to the Giants because of the opening, and not only got in and learned from the playbook, but got into the game, had 18 rushes and 36 yards. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but again, this is the Giants of team, and he did have a touchdown. But the other thing is he also had 45 yards. And, granted, it's the Vikings defense, but it made him look, look like a pretty much big stud out there. Now, keep in mind that, Peyton Hillis, he had a very successful campaign in 2010. And, he's not an oldie or anything. He was on the cover of Madden 2011, but a rash of injuries and with the Cleveland Browns. So this could be his way back to the NFL. And at least for the next 2-3 weeks, you might want to keep him around. And he's but one thing to remember, which I think will make him really successful, he was born 6 days after the Bears won the Super Bowl 20. Right, Jenilee, what do you think? What do you think of it?
I'm more impressed by your trivia there, pulling that one out of your butt. Unfortunately, I have to call you out on it being Madden 12 that Peyton Hillis was on the front of.
Thank you, that's correct.
But, Peyton Hillis, strangely enough, here's another piece of weird trivia. My boss at my day job that I work at, her name is Terry Hillis. It's her cousin.
Oh.
And, Yes.
Weird.
Very weird. And she had picked him number 1 2 seasons ago when he had a hot season, and we all know where he's gone. And yeah, he came in, he got a touchdown on Monday Night Football. First game out, he's got the hot hand. He's a gamble, but, you know, you got to be gutsy. Again, another starting running back.
Yeah. Now my question about him though is he going to go away when Brandon Jacobs comes back?
Right.
You know, that'll be interesting to see what they do with that. But definitely, I think Brandon Jacobs is iffy for this week, especially. I don't think he's going to play. So if you need someone this week, there's 6 teams on a bye, which is a huge bye week. So.
Yeah. And we all know Mr. Coughlin always likes to stick with the hot hand. David Wilson. Speaking of which,
and when you're 0-6,
yeah, well,
like you can use whatever hot hands you can.
now 1-6 for crying out loud. Thank you, Vikings. But I just gave you the lead in there. I think to your
that's right.
bust.
1-6, but it feels like 0-1, you know.
Right. But I think I just gave you the lead in on your bust there by mentioning Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, David Wilson would be my pick for the bust of the season. Really, he's pretty much laid a gold, a dud, an egg, and I had him on one of my fantasy leagues, and I remember seeing it's 1.3 points and things like that. He's had a lot of from blocking issues to fumbling issues, and just hasn't remained healthy. So it's been a bunch of number of factors. And this guy was rated as high as, maybe 7th or 8th by some national analyst.
By us. We picked him. We picked him in the preseason to be all hot.
Well, Greg picked him.
I picked him. Now she's just going to blame me. I love it. But yeah, I picked him. Starting running back. Didn't think he'd have the dropsies. Didn't think he'd have the blocking problems. Guess what? I was wrong.
Well, he went in the first and second rounds of most drafts, depending on how deep the league was. So it's not, no one really saw this coming, that he was going to be that much of a bust. Yeah. So, Cash, what do you think about the Bears going forward? What do you think the rest of our season is going to look like?
Sure, yeah. It's very interesting. At the beginning of the season, and I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to speak out loud and having come true, but I looked at the roster and asked myself, who are the Bears could not afford to lose for any length of time in 2014? Matt Forte, Brandon Marshall, Charles Tillman, Julius Peppers. All good possibilities. But the one player I felt, for a number of reasons, they couldn't do without is Jay Cutler. Now, my answer is a little bit different than probably what most fans would give, or the reasons being. It's not because of Cutler's leadership skills, physical talents, or mental toughness that he brings to the table. Those are all valuable traits. But because this is a contract year for Jay, in order to truly evaluate him and make a commitment to him for the next, say, 5 years to 10 years even, as a GM, one would want to see how far he's progressed and matured, especially under the tutelage of Mark Trestman and Matt Cavanaugh, and whether he, can resist temptation to go to Brandon Marshall every other down and consider options 2 and 3 on a given play, and make better decisions, especially in the red zone behind a capable offensive line. And we started to see a lot of positive things happening this year. So it is really unfortunate, and it was devastating to me when I saw him limp off in D.C. And not sure only what this means for 2014, but also where there will be a Cutler and Bears marriage for the next few years even. However, bear with me. In the past 48 hours, it's occurred to me that this scenario may work out for the best, and here's why. Mark Trestman is supposed to be an offensive genius, and that will, be his test. What better way to test him than be without your franchise quarterback? And football fans, hey, they don't often want to be, without your, going with your backup QB. But if it's going to happen, it might as well happen during the regular season. And not in the championship game where you would have to send out Philip Haney. Josh McCown had and utilized all his offensive weapons, passing the ball, running with the ball, while nearly pulling out a win in hustle territory. Let's see what he can do after the bye week. Can he keep the team above 500 until Cutler returns? And a couple more. How well is our offensive line maturing in run blocking, as the assumption is the Bears will run more with Cutler out? And lastly, Jay will not have to face Dominican Sue when the Lions come to town in, I believe it's week 10.
I think those are all really good points, Cash. You know, I definitely don't know what they're going to do about Cutler. I mean, at this point, he has shown that he's injury prone.
Right.
Which is a problem for a quarterback. He's hurt every single year, and this was the one year that he had the offensive line and shouldn't have gotten hurt.
And still gets hurt.
And he still got hurt. And so I don't know if you offer him that huge, big money contract or if you look for somebody in the draft or, you know, I don't know what their decision-making process will be, but this injury is not helping him because even though he was playing a lot better, he still wasn't playing like a Drew Brees or like a Peyton Manning. And if he had done that, I think they would say, okay, screw the injury, we're going to sign him. But I don't know if it was good enough for him to get that contract.
Well, and I also think you have to look at the fact of how Josh will do. The next few weeks are really going to tell. Is it our offensive line that's awesome, or is it Jay Cutler that was awesome? And if Josh can somehow pull this off, he might be able to get himself a damn starting job as on his little journeyman run that he's been with us, and might actually get himself established, because you have to remember the last time he played, we had a horrible line, and he was running for his life just like Jay was. So we saw in the game, he almost brought us back in that damn game. If it wasn't for the refs of the NFL, thank you very much for making a bunch of BS calls, you know, we might have actually pulled that thing off.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm actually very curious on how the season plays out and how it concludes, and I almost want to fast forward to that because I want to see if it makes more sense to perhaps franchise Jay and even draft a quarterback, you know, in the next draft, which is probably going to be pretty strong class with guys like McCarron and Teddy Bridgewater and Johnny Manziel and others.
Yeah.
So what is your prediction for the Bears' record with everything that has happened in the last week?
Well, you know, it's forecasted that he's going to be out for at least 4 weeks, and one of them being a bye week. That's 3 games. My guess is he's going to be out at least one more game. It would not surprise me if he, you know, it depends how Josh is playing, and if the Bears are you know, at least 500 during, you know, at least or 2-1 while Jay's out, or maybe, you know, 3-2 somewhere there. I think if he progresses well, he heals well, I think he'll be back at the very latest by the Cowboys and Bears games on Monday night.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for your gambles. We really appreciate you giving them as usual. You're going to have some different gambles for us on the podcast tomorrow night at blogtalkradio.com/bigballsfootball. Also, you can, of course, look for us on our website, bigballsfantasyfootball.com. That'll take you to our Facebook page and our Twitter that Jenilee is going to tell you about.
Yes, our Facebook page is facebook.com/bigballsfantasyfootball. You can like us on there. We're always updating it. And Twitter is at bigballsfball. So go ahead and tweet us. Sorry we had one of our signs fall, but
we got we got photo bomb last week. We got sign bomb this week. We don't let anything stop us here at Big Balls Fantasy Football. Thanks again, Cash, and everybody. Good luck in Week 8. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks. Good night. Just like players, their signs are dropping like flies. Good night, guys.